You know the vibes. Welcome back to another episode of the Hoop Genius podcast brought to you by NBA 2K25. It's myself, Mooncey, and because you guys loved him so much the other day, Coach Brendan Suhr is back in the building. Coach, how you doing?
Unbelievable. Just saw incredible NBA game. That's why the NBA is so incredible. Uh, Nothing like NBA playoff basketball. So we were treated again, Eastern Conference, to the second great game and upset, really.
Yeah, I hope the Timberwolves are somewhere taking notes on how to make an exciting conference finals because the Pacers and the Knicks went down to the wire once again with Indiana escaping with a
Yeah,
114-109 win on the road in Madison Square Garden to take a 2-0 series lead. The Knicks are now 3-5 at home in the playoffs. Are you concerned about that? The Pacers 6-0 in their last six road games. They won three in Cleveland against the defending champs and two here in New York.
that's spectacular. I mean, Madison Square Garden, having coached in it as a visiting team, it's like when you go and play the Lakers, you love to play in Los Angeles and you love to play in MSG because you just love the celebrities, you love the fans, you love the stars. They're always sellouts. And the way the both arenas are put together, um, for the fans in Europe and outside the US that have never been to Madison Square Garden, Mo, you have. The thing that's amazing about it, it's like a Broadway play, only the court is lit up. Everything
Hmm.
else is dark. There's no
That's
lights there, as
that's why the
opposed to other
pictures
arenas.
look so good. And the Celtics changed their lighting a couple of years ago, or more than a
Yeah,
couple of years ago. But they changed the lighting to do the same thing for a stretch there, so that the photographers get better shots.
yeah.
Um,
But I just think, Indiana, I mean, I love
are you
mental.
worried about the Knicks' lack of home court advantage here? Because 3-5 at home is worrying.
They're done. It's over, in my opinion, even though they're a good road team. When you lose like that, um, and this is when Sunday, when they play again, this is when you think they'll have a letdown. Indiana, they'll be everyone in Indianapolis will be patting them on the back all day tomorrow and Sunday. This is what happened to them with Cleveland. Cleveland came in and blew them out. Game three, they recovered for game four and did the same to Cleveland. So I predict that New York will fight for their lives. They're a great road team. Brunson will show up, but I think they can see the finals. And when you get that close, Mo, uh, there's nothing like it. And for the Pacers to get to the finals, it's just amazing thing. So I think it's going to be amazing, but I think the Knicks are in real trouble. And I told you I was rooting for the sentimentally for the
Mhm.
Knicks.
Well, I'm secretly rooting for both series to end in 5 games or less because
What are you trying to get to the States for the finals or
no,
what? I
I'm
mean,
trying to have next Friday and Saturday night free because people don't see the
Okay.
sacrifice of this show. It's not only that I stay up till 7 in the morning doing the show, it's the opportunities I have to turn down on a Friday or a Saturday night. And it's
I don't want to hear about your social life. Okay. I don't want to. This is the playoffs, man. This is all about if you
well,
lose,
here's
I'm
the
going to
thing.
give you
Here's the thing.
if
Here's the thing. Tonight is Friday night, and I was not too mad watching this game. It was fantastic. I would have been more mad if I was watching another OKC blowout. But do you know who came ready to play today? Pascal Siakam. He
that
started with 11 straight points all to himself. He outscored the Knicks in the first few minutes of the game, on his way to 39 points. The last game was the Aaron Neesmith game. This is the Pascal Siakam game. This is when you talk about having depth. This is when you talk about why they made that trade last season for Pascal Siakam, because in a game where Halliburton really struggled, he was 5 of 16. He finished with 14 points, 11 assists though. But there was the first half where he was 1 of 7. And when your superstar is struggling, I mean, if Jalen Brunson had gone 1 of 7 in the first half, he finished with 17 points in just the first half alone. But I don't know if the Knicks would have been able to stay in the game, but even with Halliburton really struggling to score, the Pacers managed to stay afloat thanks to Pascal Siakam.
when you get to the conference finals or the finals, you're never doing it with one or two players. You have to have a team. And the Pacers, as we said, unbelievable. Them and OKC, the best depth of any teams in the league. And six guys again in double figures for the
Hmm.
Pacers tonight, which is great. But Siakam was the man. What a player. Another international superstar. And this guy, he is just, he's the epitome of a team player, but also a guy that can just put out, he can come and deliver big time games for you. I love Pascal Siakam, a great acquisition by them last year.
And what I like about the Pacers as well is obviously sometimes when they get the switch off the pick and roll and they've got the mismatch, and so now it's the big guarding Halliburton and the small guarding Siakam. You often see Halliburton trying to ISO on the big, but there were a lot of instances in this game where Halliburton gave up that pass to Pascal Siakam to use the size advantage on the kind of mid post area so that he could go to work.
Yeah, Pacers are one of the few teams, Mo, that when there is a switch, both Miles Turner and Siakam can take you inside and punish you. A lot of teams don't have a guy that can, they roll, they lob to them, but these guys can both post up and score over you. And that's a great, great thing to have in one of your players.
Well, speaking of their depth, we saw minutes for Tony Bradley tonight. A lot of fans might not be familiar with Tony Bradley's game. He came in because he offers them a little bit more size against Mitchell Robinson, who played big minutes for the New York Knicks tonight. Karl Anthony Towns only played 28 minutes, whereas Mitchell Robinson played 20, 30 minutes off the bench. Tony Bradley, after spending the last, 2 years in the G League, the Development League, in two different teams, he comes in and he's giving them solid minutes.
I think I last saw Tony on the back of a milk carton here in the States, okay, where he was missing, okay. But he was a great high school player in Florida, went to Carolina, left after a year, which he shouldn't have, went to North Carolina, and then has and never did anything, in the league. So
Yeah, he won that 2017
yeah,
NCAA championship.
yeah, and so the big thing for what the Pacers have done is they just keep acquiring in their 15-man roster. They just keep getting bodies and a really good job for them. And and I think that's one of the things about them that I really like is they to plug a guy in that has I don't even remember Tony playing in any of the other series, to be honest with you. I really
No.
don't,
Um,
which is really amazing.
the depth, like TJ McConnell, we talked about him after game one, but tonight he was killing in that mid-range area, really finding the gaps in the defense. I even saw Miles Turner hitting some pull-up jumpers in the mid-range, which breaks away from the philosophy of dunk or three, which I kind of really enjoyed. But I love the little details, and Andrew Nemhard does one thing on the basketball court that I absolutely love. You're familiar with the concept of defender pulling a chair. That's usually on a post up when a player's backing you down, you kind of step back and you let them use their own momentum to fall to the ground. Andrew Nemhard does that, except on drives. So when a player's driving hard to the basket with the ball, he looks like he's about to initiate contact with them, and then he just steps away, leading them to kind of be more out of control. And there was a possession here that really caught my eye. I think Miles McBride was driving hard down to the baseline, and Nemhard he's guarding him, and he simply just takes a step back. McBride just dribbles out of bounds. And that was in a
Yeah,
key stretch of the game, which
yeah.
was a change of possession.
And that was something that was developed years and years ago for post players, as you know, the pulling of a chair for a guy. When you're posting up real strong, you step away and he falls back. Very rarely, if ever, seen for a guard. But Nemhard is a Canadian kid, another international kid. He and his brother, who's at Gonzaga this year. Those kids, they're just really smart players. And this guy was, the first pick or second pick in the second round. He's just been a tremendous pro. They knew exactly who they were drafting. And he is their quarterback, even though, a lot of people think Tyrese Halliburton's their point guard. He's their point shooting guard. He's their
They're
lead guard. But
interchangeable, really.
yeah, yeah. Just have so much talent. I love the way they use their people. Carlisle's done a great coaching job these first two games.
What did you make of Carl Anthony Towns' performance? Because we saw way less minutes than he usually gets. There was a stretch in the first half where, especially the second quarter, I think he had 10 points early in that second quarter when Brunson was getting a rest on the bench. They were running the offense through him. However, in the second half, we didn't see too much of Carl Anthony Towns because his defense, there were a lot of plays on defense which I thought were absolutely horrific.
I think what they've done is they have kind of figured out that they're going to attack two players, or they call it target or seek out two guys, Carl Anthony Towns, because he's such a weak pick and roll defender, and also Brunson. Those are the two guys they're hunting. And I think that, you know, Tibbs gotten that point where, as a coach, if I keep putting him in there, we're just going to keep giving up too many points. And so I always say, Mo, as a coach in the NBA for 35 years, the biggest thing is, as much as you know, as good as you've been, every decision I make as a coach is 50-50, whether it's going to work or not.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's one of those ones that, you know, you just afterwards tonight when you watch the game, you're going to say, guy had 20 points, he's 6 for 6 in the line. Maybe I should have played him another 8 or 10 minutes.
He had 20 points, but he was a
That's
minus
what
20 in plus minus. So every single one of those 20 points he scored was
that's what I'm
neutralized by the Pacers on the other
and
side of
that's
the
what
floor.
I'm saying. The 50-50 thing, I can score, but I'm giving up everything on defense, you
Hmm.
know.
And
And
I don't
so
know if you
those
want
are
to be
tough.
in a shootout against this Pacers team. You need to get stops.
Well, the thing is the Pacers have been known not as a good defensive team, except their full court pressure, which I love. But I'll tell you what, in this series, even though they gave up 130 something points in overtime, they can defend when they need to. And
Hmm.
Naismith is one of the best, most physical. I mean, it's like rugby match,
Hmm. Hmm.
or U.S. football game. Naismith and Brunson out there. It is so physical
No,
for
it's
point
rugby because
guard
they ain't
play.
hiding behind shoulder pads.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
yeah.
That's good. I'll drink to that, Mo.
What I love about Aaron Neesmith, while we're talking about him,
Yeah.
is he got drafted by my Boston Celtics, but they drafted him because of his shooting. Like in high school and college, he was known as a shooter. But because the Celtics roster had so many players playing in similar positions, he had to carve out his niche. And he did that by becoming the scrappiest of defenders in a Marcus Smart type mold. They obviously traded him in the Brogdon trade, excuse me. They traded him in the Brogdon trade, but he kept that defensive mindset and identity and took that with him over there to Indiana. When you've got guys like that in your team and in your locker room, it sets the tone for the rest of the guys.
You know, when you're in the front office in the NBA, you draft a lot of players, you sign some free agents, um, and you trade guys. And every one of us has a record in those three areas. And Brad Stevens has done a great job, and he and Danny Ainge before. And this one will go down as one of the worst Celtics moves of all time.
I would disagree because the trade for Brogdon then landed them Drew Holiday, which then landed them an NBA championship.
Okay, I give it a tie.
Because then it becomes the question of who do you like better, Drew Holiday or Aaron Neesmith? And factoring age and what Aaron Neesmith is doing currently, I can see the case, but they got a banner out of that trade, so I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, but yeah, I understand. I understand. But I love Naismith at 26 years old, leading a three-point shooter in the playoffs. I talked to Jerry Stackhouse, his coach at Vanderbilt University, yesterday, and he said he had to convince everyone, including the Celtics, that the kid could shoot. They all thought he could defend, but he's just been a tremendous playoff player this year. Love him.
Absolutely. But on the other end of the scale, Jalen Brunson, amazing offensively. Like some of the shots he was hitting down the stretch, absolutely sublime. It's only right because I've spoken about Shea trying to get those fouls and exaggerating contact with the referee. In my opinion, Jalen Brunson is way worse with the theatrics than Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is. But what I wanted to talk about is the Pacers relentlessly picking on Jalen Brunson time after time after time down the stretch of that game.
Yeah, this is a big strategy that coaches have been using for the last few years. And if you have good enough players that are disciplined and smart enough, and you have the concepts to do it, you have to go after matchups that you know you have an advantage. And unfortunately, and because he plays so hard, he sometimes is in foul trouble. Like last game, he had 5 fouls almost a whole fourth quarter. And so he really had no choice. So I think this is one of the things. And unfortunately, they are really going after him, and it doesn't matter who it is. And you know, it's ironic. The last two games, Brunson, I think, takes the last two shots of each game, both air balls.
Mm. Absolutely. And the thing is, with targeting Jalen Brunson on defense, there was a lot of times where Halliburton would get Brunson guarding him, then he's trying to attack the paint where he can use his height and wingspan advantage. But then Mitchell Robinson comes across from the weak side to help, leaving the corner shooter wide open. The Knicks need to help the helper because if Mitchell Robinson's coming across to protect the hoop, you can't leave guys open in the corner for shots.
Yeah, there's no one there though. That's the problem because
They've got to get in rotation though and
no,
fly around.
yeah, but unfortunately, the way they had the offensive scheme, they have Miles Turner out there, then they have Siakam at the top on the left side. Pick your poison,
Mhm.
and unfortunately, the whole key is anytime the most important thing in defense, man-to-man defense, is the person guarding the ball has to be able to contain the ball. But the Knicks people keep getting beat off the dribble, getting that help like you asked for. But when you get help from someone, someone's going to be open. The most important thing is to keep the ball in front of you and make them shoot over the guy that's guarding you. And that's where the Knicks, I think, have fallen short. And that's mainly Brunson and some of their other wing players.
Yeah, another player who does a good job on defense for the Pacers is Ben Shepherd, who we mentioned briefly in the last show. We talked about them, but he gave them some good minutes on the defensive side of the ball.
He's a real specialist, a good young player. Again, another guy. I never heard of Ben Shepherd. Never heard of him before. He was in a Pacers. And it's one of their 10, 11 guys that they can go with. I mean, and Rick uses them. Carlisle uses them every time he needs to for defense, and he trusts the hell out of them.
It was an interesting stretch down this game because the Pacers were up 10 with 2.5 minutes left, which was very reminiscent of game one, except the Knicks were up double digits. The Knicks cut it to a 3-point game with a minute left. The Pacers went to double team Jalen Brunson. Josh Hart cuts, perfectly timed pass, gets an easy layup. On the inbounds pass, Tyrese Halliburton throws the ball out of bounds, but kind of gets saved because Brunson has grabbed Neesmith's jersey, fouling him, sends him to the line, right?
Sure.
So now Neesmith has his free throws, so on and so forth. The Knicks are down 3. They don't call a timeout. And I think this is like with 10 seconds left on the clock, right?
Yeah, they only had one left.
Yeah, they only had one left, but they don't call it. Brunson brings the ball up the court and he launches a deep 3. And that still had about 4 seconds left on the clock. Was he worried about the Pacers potentially fouling when they're up 3?
I don't I
Because that 3 was from like Jalen Brunson's a good 3-point shooter, but that was from way downtown, the one that he just launched and missed horribly.
Yeah, personally, I understand, you're damned if you only have one 3-point shot left because if you come down and you make a basket or you make a 2 and you're down 1 and you foul again, now you can't advance the ball. So coaching etiquette or strategy in the NBA is don't take that time out. And so Tibbs did what we do by the book. And so I can't second guess him.
And it doesn't let the defense get set either. It keeps
but I don't like
Halliburton
the
in the
shot.
game.
I don't like the shot. I don't like the shot at all. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I've seen Cat throw up a lot of those super deep, almost at the logo threes as well in this game.
See, a guy like Brunson's better off if they're guarding the 3. Go down, take the ball to the basket, get fouled, and you might even make a 3-point play. But if not, you make 2 free throws, you foul right away. They got to make 2 free throws. Then you use your timeout to tie the game or win it.
Absolutely.
Always try to get 2, in my opinion, unless it's under 5 seconds.
Well, one thing I really like about the Pacers is, we talk about their points in transition, similar to OKC, but they're passing out of inbounds pass, even when the Knicks make a bucket. There was a stretch in this game where there was like 5, 6 possessions in a row where every time the Knicks scored, the Pacers just launched the ball down the court to whoever's running and they get a bucket and they equalize the score.
Yeah. The Pacers and OKC are 2 teams that more than any other team will inbound the ball after the other team makes a basket. And they do it, most coaches teach that the nearest big man take the ball out. The Pacers and OKC say the nearest player take it out. They don't care if it's a point guard, anyone. Get that ball in. And the rule of thumb, Mo, this is amazing, is you must get the ball in as a coaching staff. This is what they work on from training camp on, is get that ball inbounds in under 1 second. That's how quick they want to do it. And see if those guys, if you can ever get an easy basket. Now, they only got 14 points in transition, but a couple of them were real crucial, and they were layups.
Hmm.
You know, Siakam got one on a rebound late in the game, just ran ahead of the field and made a layup. But when you look at how close the game is, really important. I thought it was a high level game, and it's a pressure game when you're the home team and you need to win that game. The pressure on you to win that game is just amazing. So, um, but I didn't think Indiana was. I, Usually we have it that if you're in Miami, Los Angeles, or New York for multiple days, you don't have a shot as a road team. You know, you get beat by, unfortunately, just being there in town. There's so many good things to do. But I'll tell you what, they were disciplined. They were disciplined. They won.
Yeah, I kind of, BJ and I spoke about this quite a lot. There's more distractions when you're at home though, because you've got your family there, you've got your friends there, you've got to get everyone tickets for the game, you've got to see your kids before the game. There's a lot going on. Well, whereas when you're on
Yeah.
the road, you're staying in a hotel, you don't have to worry about any of those things. You're just there to complete the mission.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. That's a great point, and and that's usually the distractions for the home team come in the finals when everyone that was in your family or said they were in your family now comes in to see them,
Mhm.
the games. And also they now want to travel with you on the road, as you saw when you did the Boston Golden State game. There's people from everywhere coming, and
Yeah, I saw a
you
few
saw
things.
it firsthand. You saw it firsthand. So, but you know what? These professionals, they play 100 games a year, and they are so disciplined. They travel, and they're kind of like you know musicians. Chris Martin, they're Coldplay's going all over the world to perform. These guys, they have to be able to perform at a ridiculously high level. Uh, you know, being on the road all the time, and I admire that. That these guys are truly performers. They really are.
The Knicks starting lineup before this game began was a negative 38 altogether. And after tonight, with Carnage Towns being negative 20, it's going to be even worse. At what point and what stage of this series do you think Tom Thibodeau should consider adjusting that starting lineup?
Never. No,
Why
you're
not?
going down. No, you don't change your lineup. That's just you dance with who brought you there. Uh, you can always substitute quicker, but you never change your lineup.
Yeah, I think
Never.
he went a while in the first quarter of this game. I think it was like 7 minutes before the first substitute came in.
Yes, it's Tom will sometimes go a whole half. I mean, there.
He would go
I
a whole
mean,
game if he could.
if he could, he loves his starters. Uh, and it hasn't hurt them in the playoffs at all. And so now, he just, other than Robinson, they don't have a good bench team. I mean, campaign can't,
Yep,
uh,
there
you
was a
know,
real rough stretch without Brunson.
yeah,
I think the first 3 minutes of the fourth quarter, they couldn't get anything going without Jalen Brunson in the game. They had their double bigs out
yeah.
there, but campaign running the show, it just wasn't the move.
No, he's not he wants to shoot the ball with an ugly shot. And, and, usually lefties have a nice shot. He's got an ugly shot. And you want a guy that size, that small, to be able to run the team, especially when you have some good scores in there. But you know, they're going to come. They're going to show up on the road. They play very well on the road. But I'll tell you what, I think you'll start to see the statistics against a team that has to now go on the road down 0-2. It's mathematics that I can't even handle. And then of course, if they lose game three, it's never been done before.
I'll start filling up my calendar
It's
for Friday
over.
night. But
Yeah, you try to get a date. That's all I can say
I
to you.
don't need to try, my brother. But in other news, the All NBA teams were announced today. I'll
Yes.
read them out for you guys if you guys didn't know. The first team, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jason Tatum, and Donovan Mitchell. I don't think there was any surprises there. Were you surprised by perhaps a Donovan Mitchell making that team?
Well, we went to a new system last year where we now don't have to do two forwards, two guards, and a center, which they used to always do for years.
Mhm.
And so be able to do this now, I thought really was a great improvement.
But we
And
ended up with two guards, two forwards, and a center.
no, I'm saying, but
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm just saying
the
it's a
five highest
coincidence
vote.
that now they've changed it. We've gone back to
It just turned out that way. But Donovan Mitchell, I knew he would be on one of the three teams. I did not think that he would be on the first team, to be honest with you. I
Who
didn't
would
think.
you have had? Because I think the Cleveland regular season record really helped him get that extra push for first team. But who would you have had instead?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Jalen Brunson, perhaps?
That's the only person I was thinking of. Um, you know, and yeah, and I think LeBron got the right thing. I think the guy is absolutely a miracle man walking around 22 years in. It's absolutely
Yeah,
insane.
he made the All NBA second team. LeBron James,
Yep.
Evan Mobley, Anthony Edwards, Stephen Curry, and Jalen Brunson.
Yep. I mean, I thought that was it. And then I was really, really happy with Cade Cunningham. I think he really, really deserved it. He's made a fantastic improvement this year.
Hmm.
And that was a great group of, four guards
Yeah,
on that
Kate
team.
Cunningham, Tyrese Halliburton, James Harden, Jalen Williams, and Karl-Anthony Towns make up the third All
Yeah.
NBA team.
Yeah. Hard. And again, this is only for regular season for our people, that I think, you say, James has been great except for don't put him in the game seven, I mean,
Yeah.
but and I thought Jalen Williams made a great, great step. I'm anxious to see who were the guys that came close but didn't get it.
Yeah,
But
I thought Ivica Zubac could have made his way onto a team. I think if they forced people to pick centers in every team, he would have
yeah,
easily been on one of
uh,
them.
100%. And
Um,
that's how Rudy Gobert had made it, a couple of times
but a player I
back in
was
the
kind
day.
of surprised at not being on there was Jaren Jackson Jr., who was the Grizzlies' best player this season. They
Yeah,
stayed in the
but
top three of the
yeah,
West for the majority of the
I
year.
thought he really fell off, and they were such a disappointment late in the year that I think people are a little down on him right now, to be
Yeah,
honest with
the other players to receive votes: Alperen Şengün, Jaren Jackson Jr., Ivica Zubac, Darius Garland, um, Domantas Sabonis, Pascal Siakam, Bam Adebayo, Trae Young, and Devin Booker.
you.
There's
A
a
lot of
crazy amount
guys.
of talent in the NBA right now.
Oh,
Because
and
any of
young,
them could have made one of these three teams, and people
yeah.
wouldn't have been outraged about it.
I mean, and I think you hit it on the head. Winning has a lot to do with it. And I think people, the voters, reward that. And, I think it's interesting that we had three teams that had two players get on there of the 15 players. So six of the 15 came from three teams, which is quite interesting.
Mm.
I guess the Knicks, OKC, and Cleveland, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Uh,
Yep. Because you got Evan
Pretty strong.
Mobley and Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and again, regular season award, and for those that are not familiar, that why this is such a big deal. It's just not getting a certificate for being all pro. There's a lot of money tied into this and bonuses
I
and
can give
certain
you an
countries.
example. Cade
Yes.
Cunningham has earned an extra $45 million for making an All NBA team and is qualified for the 30% max contract. So his $46.4 million salary for next season actually it is insane to me. I don't know if they could make an exception for player bonuses from winning awards because Kate Cunningham making an All NBA team and having a great season has taken the Pistons cap space from 25 million to 17 million. So because Cade, you were so good this year, you're going to get less help in the offseason because we're taking away, you know, $8 million for your team to potentially sign another player to add to your roster.
Mm, how about that?
Yep.
He's not going to return any of that money though, Cade.
Of course not. You know what? One thing that I've not spoken about during this playoffs is Jalen Brunson taking a pay cut to the extremity that he took a pay cut to allow them to go and get Bridges and Cat on this team. You know, I was going to wait until they made the finals and say this is such a great thing that he took a pay cut, but
Well,
right now it's not looking too
it
good.
was more for Bridges for next year trying to sign him
Mm.
to stay. Um, but I think he's kind of played himself to a certain level. People that, you know, OG's their only max player, and he's not a max player, but he was a free agent at the right time. He was unrestricted, and that's what it's not what it's sometimes it's not what you deserve, it's what you get. And so he's got that.
Well,
It's
OG changed representation was represented by Leon Rose's son, and then got himself traded to the Knicks,
Hmm. How
and
about
then
that?
got this contract. Shout out to my boy OG. I'm so happy they secured the
No, I
bag,
love the
and he's
kid.
been fantastic.
No, I
But
love the
the
kid.
Knicks
Yeah.
knew what they were doing when they traded for him. They knew the expectation of the salary he would command.
Yeah. And as you remember last year, they lost in the playoffs in this round because he got hurt and he
Hmm.
couldn't even finish. So but
And he's more than capable of having a game like maybe not 39 like Siakam did tonight,
well,
but he has a capable of having a game of 30 points.
well, think about it. In the previous series, he was 1 for 12, and the next game at 30 points. I mean, so he's been really
But his defense is always
pretty
consistently one of the
solid.
best in the
Pretty.
NBA.
Who is guarding Siakam tonight?
They threw a bunch of different looks at him, and
That's exactly right.
and the Pacers,
OG
to their credit,
Bridges.
were doing a good job whenever OG was guarding someone to get him screened off of them because they don't
Yeah.
like OG disrupting.
So they hunt a guy, and that's why sometimes they'll even hunt and have whoever Brunson's guarding pick for him to get him free and get a
Yeah,
switch. I
and it's
mean,
like
so this is really
when
smart
Kawhi was
basketball.
in San Antonio and he was one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, teams would just say to the guy that Kawhi's guarding, "Go and stand in the corner. We don't want Kawhi anywhere near what's going on.
Sure,
So you could be the
absolutely.
best player on our team, but for this game, you're going to go stand in the corner and take Kawhi away from everything."
Yeah,
And that's the impact of having such a great defender.
it's interesting, Mo. I think one of the things that we're going to see coming up here. One of the things I was thinking about during the game is I'm watching Siakam, who I absolutely love. I love OG. And I'm saying, if Masai had kept those guys in Toronto, they'd be a pretty good team. Pretty good team.
Yeah,
I don't.
unfortunately, the Raptors are deep in a rebuild right now.
Yeah.
So that's that. But tonight, the Minnesota Timberwolves return home to try and get their first win of the series against the OKC Thunder. How do you see this going? Because from what I've seen so far, they have absolutely zero answers for
No,
the OKC.
none. And OKC has. I love their team. I want them to be in the finals. Um, I shouldn't say that as a media person tonight, but I do.
Hey,
Uh,
hey, listen, this
my
is the
my
Hoop
coach is
Genius
coming
podcast.
out.
We make the rules here. You can say whatever
Hoop,
you like.
I'm hoop genius as a dumbass former coach. But anyway, but I really, I think OKC is vulnerable on the road, and Minnesota needs to come and play really great at home. I think they're capable of winning two at home.
I
And
think this game three, Anthony Edwards comes out and says, last year he said he's better than Shea and he's better than Luca. It's time to step up and prove it.
yeah,
Because right now, through the first two games, Shea has looked like the more complete player.
yeah, my favorite football coach in your country is I know they didn't have a good year, but my friend at Man City, Pep,
Hmm.
and one of his behaviors that he believes in his teams is humility, number one.
Hmm.
And that's what Anthony Edwards needs to get, a little humility. Shea has a bunch of it, you know.
He's Canadian. Canadian people are the most humble people.
Yeah, I mean, but you really need to have that. You know, and even Steph Curry at 37 years of humble, and I think that's what you need to have. And that's what Anthony needs to get a little of. And then let other people talk about you.
That's
Uh,
exactly Michael Jordan never goes out and says he's the greatest. He always
Mike
gives
never
credit to the players that came before him. And that's
exactly
that's the great
exactly
part
right.
about it.
Yeah. What I've always found in coaching, whether it be the Dream Team or, NBA All-Star games or just the Pistons, is that when you're really good, you don't say shit. Okay, you don't have to say anything. Everyone else will tell you how great you are, and you just play. And that's what he needs to focus on. Obviously, with social media and all that, people think they need to also talk. You don't
It's
have
also a
to.
moneymaker because he is kind of quote unquote face of the league now. And he has all those commercials and everything going on. The fans love his personality. And if he wasn't to be himself, and I don't think there's anything wrong with what he does. He just needs to back it up with his play. I'm more than
Yeah,
happy for him to talk how he talks. But now, game three, you're down 2-0. Show us.
show us. That's exactly
You know what I
right.
mean?
That's what I'm
I
saying.
love players that talk a lot of trash and all of this kind of stuff. Just back it up with your play. That's
Mhm.
it. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking him to stop talking. I'm just asking him to come out in game three tonight and make a statement against the OKC Thunder saying, we ain't going to get pushed over and you're not going to walk through us to the finals.
So what we need is, and they have a really good roster, and I think Gobert needs to appear and be usable, serviceable, as we like to say. But Jaden McDaniel has to really defend, and we got to have the kind of game that we wanted out of Julius Randle. We got it in game one. We got to have and didn't get in game two, and then Anthony Edwards, DiVincenzo. These guys
Naz Reid, that's the
and
key
Naz
because he's
Reid,
really struggled in this playoffs.
and Naz Reid is such a great player. And, with their team and the size of OKC, they can play Naz at 5, Julius at 4. And so, and they can play with 3 guards if they want to. But I think that I'm predicting they're going to get 2 at home, which would make it a real series, which would be good.
Okay.
Everyone in the States predicted 7-game series and all that. Cool. Let's see. Now prove it. Hey, no one thought Denver was going to be a 7-game series. OKC, no one did.
It's interesting, if OKC keep this up, it's kind of credit to Denver for making them look human because
Yes,
they sleepwalked through the Grizzlies series easily.
Mhm.
They've sleepwalked through the first 2 games against the Timberwolves, and if they can do that 2 more times, then shout out to Jokic and the crew. But we're going to find out tonight what happens in Game 3 of the Western Conference Finals. Coach Suhr, thank you once again for coming through.
Mo, you need to get some rest.
One
Okay,
day.
you need to get some rest because you got to work now the next 5 days. I mean, we got games now Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday,
Hey,
and
that's what I do.
hopefully you can get a couple of dates next weekend.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Okay.
But we'll be back tomorrow breaking it down. And if you guys didn't know, Coaching You Live, you can go and catch Coach Suhr. He's got some of the biggest and brightest coaching minds in the entire world on his platform. You can get the Coaching You app as well. And check out the Coaching You podcast. There's some real cool stuff on there. So make sure you guys go check that out. And whilst you're here, subscribe to the Hoop Genius podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast from. And be back tomorrow. Until next time, get buckets.